Hello and welcome to Who Corner to Corner podcast. My name is Geoff, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend Paul.
Yeah, that's me. Hello, everybody. Hope you're well.
How are you tonight?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good, actually. Yeah, I'm feeling rather buoyant. I would literally float on water if I was in a bathtub. I don't know why.
Well, that's because we're not alone tonight, are we?
No, we are not alone, Geoff. We have a very special guest.
We do indeed. So tonight, dear listeners, we are joined by Azhur Saleem, whose name you might recognise as director of half of Doctor Who Flux. So Az directed Chapter 3, Once Upon a Time, Chapter 5, Survivors of the Flux, and Chapter 6, The Vanquishers, amongst many other things that we will talk about tonight. Good evening, Az. How are you?
Good evening. I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Good. Well, thank you for joining us. It's very good of you. You've been quite busy lately, haven't you?
I have. I've been shooting in Edinburgh for about 7 months.
Yeah.
And now I'm in post-production for my next show.
Great. Well, we'll come on to all of that.
Yeah.
So let's dive straight into things.
Let's go for it.
Our first question is, what started your love of films and filmmaking?
Good question.
It just goes straight in.
Yeah. Straight in there.
Tell us your origin story.
Yeah, my origin story. There was a meteorite arrived from the sky, and
with green and goo.
Yeah. I was really into film.
Yeah.
From a young age. I actually wanted to be an animator. Like I really loved Disney movies, and I drew a lot as well. So there was always a kind of love for kind of films and storytelling, but for me, so that specifically about directing, it was Jurassic Park, the original Jurassic Park, which I was 12 years old, and it was the first movie that I remember seeing, going to like an 8 o'clock screening, and it was a packed out cinema. Because normally you'd go like at 12 years old, you go get some McDonald's, and then you go in the middle of the day and you watch whatever movie you're watching.
Yeah.
But this was the first time watching it at a packed out cinema, and I remember being so amazed that all of these people queuing up were watching the same movie, and that firstly blew my mind. And then what it was sitting in the auditorium and seeing the images on the screen affecting the people watching it, kind of laughing, jumping, and screaming. And that just completely, that was a kind of the bug, and the magic of it really grabbed me. And and when it got to the end, it's the first time I noticed directed by Steven Spielberg. And I thought, that must be a job. And I walked out the cinema. I remember I was next to my mum, and I turned to her and I said, I want to be a director. And bless her, she said, great. And that was it. And then
that's the support you need, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, I mean, I didn't know what that exactly meant, but that started my journey.
Brilliant. Yeah. I but Paul knows this. Mine was Terminator 2, and I was watching it on video. Shouldn't have been, because I was about 11.
Yeah.
And I was just enthralled by it, like you were with Jurassic Park, and the bit where Arnie's Terminator gets the spear through him, and I turned to my friend and I said, "Is that it? Is he dead?" And it's the characters and the whole thing just kind of got me that much, and then a bit slower than yours, but I was like, I wonder who this Schwarzenegger is. I want to find out more about him. Then I found out about James Cameron. And then I wanted to be James Cameron, and I never quite got there. But that was what started my passion for it as well.
I used to watch that film a lot on video as well. And I remember, like, again, watching it very young. Yeah. And I remember thinking, I can't wait till I'm 18 so I can watch these movies in the cinema.
Well, yeah. Do you know what? I was similar, and it took me. Well, they re-released Terminator 2 a couple of years ago, and I finally got to see it in the cinema. So that was definitely a bucket list ticked. It took a long, long time, but I got there in the end. Yeah, it was great. So Spielberg kind of really inspired you there then, and so where did your journey take you from that point, and particularly like your writing as well? How did that kind of come about?
So writing came a lot later. I used to kind of make my own short films when I was younger, like at school, roping in friends and making these little kind of short movies, which were kind of trying to, One was this kind of Tarantino-esque kind of gangster movie, all starring.
We've all done that.
It's like you've got to go through the motions, haven't you? You've got to do Spielberg, got to do Tarantino, you've got to do Cameron.
And it was just like it just stuck really. I kind of was focused on that through school. There was a kind of period where, because I used to do a lot of art as well, and I was trying to figure out what I kind of wanted to do if there was other kind of avenues, but film was always there, and I kept making these little kind of short movies. And I remember when I got to the start of like sixth form, and I realized, when you start looking at university courses and realize that, okay, yeah, there are these courses out there that I can do, which are to do with filmmaking. And I kind of pretty much was like, right, I just want school to be over so I can go off and do this. And I kind of switched off, much to my mum's annoyance. But but then, went to university, did media production, and just really enjoyed it. Like, it was one of the, there's loads of courses now that are very practical, but at the time, which was late 90s, there's quite a few. There's a lot of theory ones. And so I found one that it was pretty much all practical. And it was great. We did everything. You kind of did drama, you did documentary, you did we did one module was like a quote unquote live TV broadcast where you were given at the start of term your broadcast date, which was like 6 weeks away, and then you had to build to that and build your show around that. And then I remember the tutor would be stood there with a watch saying 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you go live, and
brilliant.
And that was just really cool. So it was a fantastic course, and that that then led to, what was I doing? So in between, in the summer holidays, I was working at a post-production company in Manchester. So that was like kind of my first job out of uni, and I learned a lot about editing there, and I think that has been, still is useful now. And I think it's so useful to be able to think about what you're filming is going to be put together. So kind of coming up that way was super useful.
I think that's really important what you just said there, actually. And I did a workshop at a school recently teaching some kids about how to make short films and stuff, and got talking a bit more to some of them. And I do think having a bit of an understanding about the whole process is really important, because
Absolutely.
like you said, as you understand how editing works, so you're thinking when you're shooting, right, I need to get this so I often think if I was putting this together, what would I want to be able to make this work, because I've been sent stuff that other people have shot, and I think, what the hell is this, where's my wide shot, and like the basics, so I think that's really important to have that kind of bit of an understanding about how it all works, because you're all part of the same team, aren't you? And you've got to all support each other with it.
Absolutely. And there's the time issue as well when you're shooting. Like, you can't shoot everything, and so kind of knowing that I will only use this wide shot at this point here, because then I can concentrate on the close up there is a good skill to understand.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting, actually. It was really good to hear, because obviously, Geoff, you do quite a fair bit of directing as well, don't you? You've got a real interest in the whole techie side of things.
Yeah, I do. I have a little video production company,
and
so my background is similar to yours, really, and we're here to talk about you, really. But my uni experience was not as positive as it sounds like yours was.
Yeah, that's a shame.
And I think a course like you did sounds great, where you're getting to experience a little bit of every different type of project.
Yeah.
So you can discover what you like,
yeah.
and so I think anyone who's listening who's got an interest in filmmaking and wants to kind of pursue that, picking the right course is so important. So basically my course was kind of more art based. I'd applied to do the narrative course and deferred for a year, and then in the interim they set up this art one and just basically dumped all the new people and deferred placements on it. And my little group and we always had to kind of fight to be able to tell stories and do that. So I think what you did is kind of the ideal way to do it, really, and get that all round kind of experience of things and discover the area that you're particularly interested in.
I think it's quite interesting actually that when you said going back to the Jurassic Park thing about having all people, the whole packed out auditorium.
Yes.
Was it partly that emotional connection that kind of drove you to achieve something?
I think so. I think it was this idea that these images are having an effect and an impact on the audience, which it was kind of like the power of storytelling in front of me.
It's magic, isn't it?
It really is. It really is, and it's funny how, for some people it hits that idea, and in terms of like the bug that kind of that you get. And how some people can watch the same thing and kind of not see those things, which again is completely fine. But I had to kind of one of the very early short films that I made, like with my cousins, right? It was this was like 12 years old, and I remember it was kind of like a western. It was a shootout.
No, you did a western,
yeah,
brilliant.
But like in a bedroom. it was. But I remember seeing the kind of the mountains that they were on, even though it was just the side of a bed. But we showed that to aunties and uncles, who were all sat downstairs, and everybody was just round for dinner, and everybody was kind of like they were obviously all laughing because it was a bunch of kids messing around on camera, and I think I knew that they were laughing both at it and with it, right? Because it was it was a bit silly, and that was still
brilliant.
A powerful thing for me, because I realized something I made was having an effect on people. It may not have been all completely good, but I mean, it's all still, everybody was having a positive kind of feedback to it.
I think, again, that's also really important.
Definitely,
We've talked about this before, but the point of music and film,
it is to move you, isn't
all
it?
of it.
It's to change you in some way, to open your eyes, to make you experience and laugh and love and cry, all those things. And anybody in the creative industry who can bring that to life and let us, the audience, somehow touch those deeper truths, it's beautiful. It makes our lives richer because of it.
100%.
Yeah, that emotional engagement that you can get.
Plus, also giant dinosaurs, man.
Yeah, right.
Spaceships, laser beams, time traveling, all of that stuff. Superheroes. It's all eye candy as much as everything else. But when it all comes together,
dress it up.
Yeah.
So, what was your first short film? Was that Limbo? Was it?
Yeah. So that was one I did at university.
And
I really enjoyed that one. It's a guy wakes up in limbo, right? He dies, and I think everybody's made one of those films, kind of stuck in purgatory.
Well, J.J. Abrams did a whole bunch of series out of it, didn't he?
Yeah.
Sorry, J.J. Yeah, we haven't got him on yet. He's not responding to our emails, so
just hang outside his house.
Just keep knocking.
But I remember was it that short film my university tutor was going to? I remember we used to have these kind of script meetings, right, where you'd go through and talk about what your production, how you're going to shoot it, and he was listing everything that was going to be quite a complex thing of you've got this, you've got this many actors, you've got this many locations, and I was sitting there slowly sinking to my seat, going, oh my god, this is ridiculous. I can't do this. And he stopped and he says, I'm waiting for you to say that you can do this. And I just went, I can do this. And then that was it.
Did you?
And then
I
went up and made it, and completely.
Brilliant.
And he was a fantastic tutor and super supportive. So I'd say that was my first proper short film. After all these ones that I made as teenagers.
Yeah. I want to see that western. Honestly, you got me interested in it now.
But we used to have this camcorder and shooting on, was it high 8?
High 8. Yeah.
Plug the fire wire in to get it into
I think even before that we had those mini VHS ones that went inside a kind of bigger VHS cassette tape.
Oh my goodness.
But we only had. I only had 3 of those tapes because my dad was always like, they're quite expensive and why do you need so many of them? So I would film, it's kind of bad, but I would film over the short films and just keep making them. So I don't have them anymore. But I think in a way,
Yeah.
the plus side to that is it made me kind of concentrate on the process in a way. That it's kind of like I would make something and get some satisfaction out of it by showing family and friends. And then you make the next one and you'd have to kind of wipe over it. And at the time, I didn't think that was a bad thing. I didn't think that I'd want to keep these films for posterity. So it's, you know, it's a shame that I don't have them. But the plus side, I think, is that it made me focus on the creation of it. Yeah.
It's a good job you weren't in charge of a whole bunch of old Doctor Who episodes. Otherwise, we'd have lost them forever.
Oh, I don't need these tapes from yesterday.
Yeah, we don't need that. It's got no future value.
Yeah,
just tape over it, dudes.
It's like security camera footage.
Go on, yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant, though. I mean, I can see how that would work actually. So you know, it's like you've done it. And it's on how can I make the next thing better? You know, learn from the mistakes that you did the first time round, and do slightly different angles and all stuff. I suppose, you know. Yeah, it's always good.
So how did you get into London Film School? Was that after uni? And...
Yeah, that was. I'd spent, I think, about a year working in Manchester at this production place, and I remember at the time thinking I want to get into production and. And it really was, you know, you have to go down to London essentially, and I applied to, I applied to loads of places and got loads of work experience, and then you know, then eventually got a position for about a year at a music video company, and that was good, but I felt at the time that I needed a little bit more time in a kind of structured education environment. And it's not right for everybody, but I felt it was important for me, and it was just something that I just applied for, and you had to do this big application form, send off your portfolio, short films, and any scripts that you'd written, and had a kind of grueling interview process. There was a proper kind of good cop, bad cop.
Was it really?
Lecturer situation. Yeah,
break him down and build him back up again. You know what we want.
I mean, it was quite intense because one of the questions they'd ask you to pick a scene for a film prior to the interview. I can't remember what mine was now, but in the interview they said, specify what's the writing and what's the directing in that scene. Okay. And everything that I picked up on, they'd be like, no, that's the writing. I was like, ugh. Oh. And I said the next thing, no, that's the writing, not the directing. And I was just kept getting it wrong. I was like, oh God, that completely balls this up. But you know, somehow I got through. And
that's weird though, isn't it? You know, it's where does the writing stop and the directing start, and vice versa. I always look at those things as a kind of a mix. You know, so the writer creates the story, the framework, but you know, the director is the guy who digs into the story and brings it out, completely. And also adds to it at the same time, because suddenly it becomes
and the
visual,
actors
right?
as well.
Absolutely. It's all of those things. Yeah. Well done, Geoff. Don't forget the actors. Nice one.
The faces. Your meat puppets.
Meat puppets.
Yeah. It is such a, like I said earlier, it's so collaborative, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I there's this quote that sticks in my head. I think it might have been from J.J. Abrams actually, but he said he's like a funnel to take all these other good ideas and then, you know, pour them through him to you know, make the end product, and it is kind of like that in a way, isn't it? Really?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I've always learned that good ideas can come from anywhere.
Definitely.
And it's like, I think it's so important because I love. What I love about filmmaking is the collaborative aspect of it, because you're a group of people working towards a vision, and I try to foster an environment on set where anybody can come up and say, "Hey, what about this shot? What about this idea?" And it's entirely my prerogative to say no, but also I can say, "That's a great idea. Let's do it."
Yeah, because people see things that you don't necessarily see, and you know, it's nice to be open like that. And I remember kind of seeing that in action on work experience years ago as well, and how the director worked with the DOP, and how some of them would include the rest of the crew on stuff and how others wouldn't. And you know, I remember thinking, I kind of, you know, I want it to be, you know, an everybody situation, you know, when I get to work. So what happened after London Film Schools? Because you did Baghdad Central, didn't you?
Yeah.
So...
Oh well, it was a good amount of years before then. Straight after film school was the financial crash of 2008, right? So
when I was out of a job as well, I remember that.
Yeah. And you kind of come out thinking this is going to be fantastic, but then the world is falling apart around you. In my last year of film school, I shot they did this, I guess, a kind of competition where they asked students to pitch to direct the 50th anniversary trailer, and it was going to be a 90-second trailer. You would get kit from Panavision and film stock from Kodak, and just all the kind of toys to play with. And so I got selected to do that, and that was fantastic. And so off the back of that, I got an agent in commercials, and I thought that would be great. And I thought, that's a really great route to go to filmmaking. You got Jonathan Glazer, Spike Jonze, and Chris Cunningham, and everybody.
David Fincher.
And Fincher as well, exactly. Yeah. So, but going into that industry just as everything is falling apart, and what was happening was all the kind of people at the top were taking the next row down jobs, and then that was just pushing everybody down. So everybody at the entry level was just
still knocking on the door.
Just still knocking on the door. So I was with that agent for about 2 years, and I did one job. So
really,
it was kind of tough going. And so, like, in the meantime, I did kind of corporate videos, just anything to try and kind of keep directing. And amidst that, just doing other jobs, like normal jobs,
Was there a point then when you thought you might have given it up and done one of those other jobs, or did you were so focused on continuing?
No, yes, definitely. And I think it is. I think it's important to kind of mention this, that it happened. It does happen to everybody. That you just think how is this ever going to happen? Is it ever going to happen?
Am I living a pipe dream kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly. And I remember somebody saying to me, "It's like you are what you do." And so when you spend so much time doing the thing that you don't love, then is that going to happen? Are you going to end up going down that route? And so lots of ups and downs. Like it was, 2008. So then, a decade after I finished film school is when I kind of got my break. But in that time, tried to, doing a lot of funding applications, all those kind of, like Film London had a microwave kind of micro budget scheme, and there was a Creative England one, and I never got anywhere. And I think a lot of that was because what I love doing is genre stuff and science fiction, and they don't really get funded because they're kind of commercial ideas, and
it's the unloved child.
Yes, it really is.
It's a bit different these days, isn't it? But back then,
it's. I remember being in one pitching session, and I stood up and I said, "It's a low budget science fiction idea," and no joke, everybody in the panel leaned back and folded their arms. And I think like they all did it subconsciously, but I was just like, man. So But I'm glad I stuck to my guns because that love of genre and science fiction is kind of what has got me the current job.
Well, wait, I've just been watching your trailer for Muse. That looks awesome.
Oh, great! Oh,
it really does. I mean, just from the trailer alone, it looks like it's one of those kind of intriguing, grab you by the throat stories and sort of pulls you in. So I want to watch that.
Yeah, I'll send you the link for that. Actually,
yeah, please. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah,
that was my kind of last gasp. Like I'm going to make a short film. I'm going to put everything into it, and see what happens. And that was like end of 2018 into 2019.
So one of my questions was, when did you film it?
There you go.
And where did the idea for it come about? So,
right. Okay. So So in 2016, I wrote a feature, which was like similar themes as Muse. So it's about the feature is about a writer who is struggling with writer's block for his second book. And so he hacks an android to write for him. And
I saw that on one of your agent's sites.
Yes,
I think. The little synopsis. Yeah,
and it turns out they're a better writer. and there's a lot of the book's about crime and murder, and the kind of the AI android takes the kind of the phrase "write what you know" a bit too literally, and starts murdering. So it all goes a bit kind of haywire. So that feature was something that almost very closely happened. Kind of like 2017, had kind of private financing, had some actors attached, and then it fell apart. Like one of the financiers walked, the main financier, which happens, right? But it was like the third time a feature or a project had kind of got somewhere, and that was the moment where I thought, right,
that must have been heartbreaking.
It really was, and I took kind of 2 months off just to try and figure out if there was something else that I wanted to do, and after that 2 months, the job for Baghdad Central came about, and that came through the casting director on my feature knew this producer, Jonathan Curling, who I met for coffee just to get some advice. At the time, he said we don't have anything on, and then a few months later, he emailed saying, well, there's this assistant job on this TV show that I'm prepping called Baghdad Central, and it's just for 2 weeks, but would you be interested? And I remember thinking like, oh, no, like I've done my time as assistant and runner, but it was my wife who was like, no, just go for it. Like you never know where it's going to lead. And that 2 weeks turned into 2 months, which turned into 6 months. And I got to kind of assist the director and assist the producer, and went to shoot in Morocco. I got to shoot some second unit, and then I was in post-production with them as well, which was amazing.
Process,
and that,
start to finish.
The whole lot,
absolutely. And it was like such an amazing experience. And it was just to kind of be back in that world again. And that led to me meeting my agent. And then I thought, right, okay, now's the time that I'm going to do a short film. And so Muse, as a script, it was kind of like a proof of concept for the feature.
Gotcha, yeah.
Because it's similar themes, but I wanted to do a short that wasn't just like a trailer, like an extended trailer. And so I wanted to do something that still had a beginning, middle, and end. And so it became its own thing. And that's what I did, and made it, and put everything into it, put lots of savings into it, and really worried about that. I'm really worried about making that decision, because it was kind of, we kind of came into inheritance money, and my brother and my sister put it into savings, and I dumped it all into this. I say dumped, but at the time it felt like I'm dumping it all into this crazy pipe dream.
So did it feel like a bit of a gamble?
Completely, because you just... Because every short film I'd made in the past, I thought, this is the one that's going to get me the agent and get me the job. And so, like, you just don't know. And I just threw everything into it, and it, like, I was so pleased with it. And then it got to Chris Chibnall. And the reason it got to Chris Chibnall was because Alice Troughton, the director I was assisting on Baghdad Central, she's obviously done Doctor Who. So I asked her for a link in as well, and then also the composer for my short was Segan.
Oh right,
and So then it was a nice kind of pincer move to Chris.
Well, that's sort of a bit of the answer of my next question, but I just want to go back and say, you had the call about doing the assisting on Baghdad Central, and your wife said, go for it. And Paul, you might remember when we spoke to Kevin McNally a little while ago. And he might have told you this, but he'd been to audition after audition and was getting a bit fed up of it. And he had an audition for a Disney film, and he didn't want to go.
He just wanted to drink his wine.
He was sitting in the garden, his wine. Sipping his wine. And his mate said, get up, I'm taking you.
Yeah, he did. He drove him up.
You never know. And he went and auditioned, and because he was a little bit tipsy, perhaps, and it was for Pirates of the Caribbean, and they loved him, and he got cast as Gibbs, and he did 5 films, and it changed his whole career. But much like you taking that assisting role, you've got to seize every opportunity, I think, because you never know what will come of it, and you don't want to end up kicking yourself and thinking, I should have answered that call, or I should have gone to that meeting.
Absolutely, and that's the one big piece of advice I give to people now is kind of go for those jobs that it might not be directing something, because I held out for so long. I was like, well, no, I don't. Like, I've done my 2-3 years of running. I should be directing now. It's ridiculous, and this I don't know the opportunities I've missed, but I'm sure I've missed lots of these kind of small opportunities that you think are nothing, and so you ignore them. But I think if you're open to them and you're aware of them, you can kind of you listen to the kind of the world telling you, hey, here's the way in.
Absolutely. So doing music, that's what led to Doctor Who then, was it for you?
Absolutely, yeah. And I remember in one of my interviews with Chris, he said that he watched it and he said this is somebody who gets sci-fi, and for me making that short, I wanted to make something like I've seen plenty of short films, sci-fi short films, which could be VFX show reels. They're great and they're amazing.
But the story's not, the character not there.
And so I wanted all there's a little bit of visual effects in it, and and obviously the kind of the world building, and I kind of wanted that to be background as the devices that we hold. Right, they're everywhere, but they're also kind of just part of the world now, and so that's the kind of ethos that I went into this, and kind of making it about the story and the characters, and like the biggest thing was getting a casting director, and so you get you pay that money for a casting director, so then it opens up that kind of higher caliber of actor and like people who are working in the industry.
So that was a worthy investment then, to just get that kind of extra polish, extra talent.
And there were a couple of things where we were like, let's just push the boat out a bit on this, and it was definitely worth it. Like the location, right? The location was quite expensive, but it was worth it because it meant we had very little like set design that we had to do. It was just amazing. It was like this kind of crumbling, falling apart building, and it is a building owned by a locations company to kind of rent out because it is kind of all crumbling and falling apart.
And there's some good angles you can get, some good working with the light and
absolutely
stuff.
But I suppose it's balancing out, the cost of a set design and a build, and the rent of a location instead. So when you met with Chris and you got to go and direct Doctor Who, how did you feel from going from doing your shorts and working and going into something like Doctor Who?
Because suddenly it's big, isn't it?
So would you say that was your biggest directorial role at that point, wasn't it?
Well, it was my first professional. I was going
to say, is that what you'd call it? And I mean that's amazing, and that's one of the things that we love the Chibnall era, but him giving work and an important role to people
talent,
like yourself, and
100%,
Ella Road, and various other people who've done theatre before, short films and things like that. So tell us, how did it feel to get that come up?
Pretty amazing. I mean, it definitely pretty amazing, because it's massive testament to Chris and the rest of the team that he can tell the BBC, like, cause it's not a small show, right?
No, that's it. It's a flagship.
Not only it's a flagship show, it's got a pretty big budget. It's a massive following, and to be able to tell your broadcaster that we're going to get, and they do it consistently, right? They're always bringing new writers and directors on board, and it's a massive training ground as well, because you're thrown into it, and because the ambition is always high for this show, and I feel it has been, especially for this year when it was in COVID, and so it puts you through its paces. So at the time it was great. Well, it was a bit protracted because I knew I'd got the job, but they were still figuring out what episodes and how many episodes.
Yeah, of course,
sweet.
Because I think they were still figuring out at the time when they were doing interviews. I think it was in the process of, because I know Chris had scripts that he had to kind of chuck out because COVID hit, and then so that I think there was a lot of kind of wrangling with I guess with the BBC to figure out, well, is it going to be how many episodes and what's it going to be, and so I remember just waiting. God, it must have been a couple of months, really? Actually.
Yeah.
To find out like what's going to happen, and then And then 3 episodes.
Yeah. that would have been something. You imagine if you got a call and they say, sorry mate, we're not doing it anymore. We can't. Yeah. We've looked at the logistics. We looked at this, and we just can't do it, man. We've got to wait. But no, fair dues to everyone who pushed that through, because
we've said that before on the podcast. You know, Flux was Who at its most epic.
We needed it. After the whole COVID thing and loads of things getting cancelled and delayed, and just uncertainty with how the pandemic's going to play out. And at that time we didn't know if they was going to find a cure for it, and it was locked in our homes. It was awful. And then to think that, we started getting some TV back. We got the assurance that Doctor Who was going to come in. Yes, it was going to be in a reduced form, but we're going to make it as epic as possible. And man, was it ever? Was it ever?
Yeah. We had no idea it would be that good. And the fact that everyone was so committed to the show that they wanted to go and do it. We could easily have ended up with nothing.
I mean, props to all of them, like the exec team and everybody. Just were like, we're going to do this, and we're going to do it like this, and we're going to make it big. And we'll shoot during COVID, and we'll work it out as we go along, and we'll put all the safety in place, and just can't, and honestly, at times I just had to pinch myself. There was one day where I think it was, we were in Jericho's kind of tunnels underground, and we were setting up for a shot, and there was 20 Sontarans, the whole gang, Kevin McNally, John Bishop, and then obviously Jodie and Mandip, and I just stood around and just was like, wow,
this is it.
I'm doing Doctor Who, and it's just so much fun.
That's awesome. So, what was it like working with Jodie, first of all, because she's obviously played the role for a while. So was it, was that really collaborative between the two of you? Because, like we were talking about earlier, to take, Chris's script and, put that through your filter and bring hers in. How did it work with the pair of you? And
it was great. Like, Jodie was, amazing. And I'm sure you've heard it from lots of people that she really leads from the front, right? And I think it's important that the number one on the call sheet sets the tone on set. And she is open, she's funny, she's down to earth, she's collaborative, wants to hear ideas, and also she's the type of actor who will say, like, she's not precious about, I need to be over here for this line, or this is where I feel like I should do this. Like, she's very much like, if you want me in this position here because the light is good, then I will do that and I'll make it work. And and she's just really fun. And so I remember we had a Zoom, me, Pete, and Jodie, just to say hello, right? Because they started filming. And it was great. Like, she was just straight in, really easy. She was like, "Look, I'm just very down to earth, and just tell me what you need, and I'll try and make it happen."
And you're thinking,
because like you don't know how actors are going to be. They play one thing on screen, and it can be somebody else that turns up.
I've done amateur dramatics, and we've had some egos on that stage. I'll tell you now, that community hall, I'd seen some times.
Well, you have to. I still, have this today with work. Is quickly kind of working out how you can be with someone, and particularly with actors. How much hand holding do you have to give them in terms of really in-depth kind of direction, and I've had to say it's 8 steps to here. You're going to turn and sit down, and then and I remember that was on a short film I did years ago, and I turned to the lead actor and I opened my mouth to say something to him, and he went, "Dude, I get it." He nailed it. And I was like, wow. That is the difference between. I'm not saying anyone's bad or
it's different learning styles, isn't it? Everyone's got their own.
It is, yeah. Some people you've really got to work with them,
Exactly, it's different processes, and each actor will have their own style, and you as a director need to work that out very quickly, because you can ask them what's your process, and nobody will ever be able to answer. I don't think they're trying to hide anything. I just don't think they think to say, well, I'm this type of person who needs this.
It's like saying how do you wash your face on the morning almost. It's a thing that you do, isn't it? You know, it's just who you are, and part of you.
Second nature, So what was it like working with John Bishop? I mean, John's been brilliant in the show, but he's obviously never acted before. So, you know, was that a bit of a challenge in a good way?
Yeah, no, he was really good. He kind of got stuck in, and I think he felt like I remember at one point. I'm sure he won't take this in a bad way, but like so I'm the type of director that when I do take after take, it's not about getting it right, and it's not about what you've done before is wrong. Most times, right? Like, yes, there might be things that don't work, but for me, it's about kind of getting essentially a kaleidoscope of performance. So I want to try a take this way, exactly that, because you can get into the edit and this little bit from take 5 mixed in with this little bit from take 3 equals something else. And I think at first when I tried just multiple takes, I think he was a bit like, I'm doing something wrong. And I kind of had to say, like, no, honestly, no, it's fine. And he was really I think he was adamant on learning as well. Like he just took it very seriously, which is great, right? You know, and you don't know how a comedian's going to be on set, but he wanted to be good, right? And so he just was getting better every day. He was
He's so good in it. And do you know what? Doctor Who has consistently proved me wrong. So when they said Catherine Tate was joining the show, I thought, I'm not sure about that. She was amazing. You know, then when Matt Lucas was joining, I was like, I'm not sure about that. He was amazing. Bradley Walsh, amazing. John Bishop, amazing. You know, so I should have learned a long time ago. Just shut up. They know what they're doing. You know,
Billie Piper back in 2004. That was that was the last time I ever questioned any sort of Doctor Who casting decision before I'd seen him, because she absolutely nailed it, as we all know. So that taught me, do you know what? If they can get this, if these guys can bring this to the screen and change how I feel about stuff, that's awesome. I'm all for it. You know.
Yeah. In fact, we're talking about John Bishop. The very first thing I shot was the John Bishop reveal.
Was it that
with the van?
With the van, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Did you ever hear the theories about that? Because Craig Ells was in that scene, wasn't he? And then when it was revealed he was Carvanista, people were going back to that scene. Do you remember
trying to pull all these little codes out?
Maybe he morphs. Yeah. Maybe Dan is a dog. You know, all this kind of thing.
I love that. I love that stuff. I love this. I love people poring over and trying to find these clues. It just turned out that Craig. We were like, well, he's going to spend the whole series in a dog outfit. We should, let's give him a role where
we can actually see him. Yeah,
and his accent as well, right? So he's a Scouser as well.
Yeah,
he's so good as Carl.
It's brilliant.
He's just,
do you know? I've just been watching awesome. It. I mean, I don't need much of an excuse to watch it, to be fair. But I thought, I reacquaint myself with the episodes, and honestly, man, I love him so much. I have to say, I mean, obviously, big Doctor Who fan for years and years, but it is that sense of chemistry, because. And also, despite all the epicness and everything else, it's actually quite a tight-knit cast, isn't it? From multiple episodes. And one thing that came through as well, because I watched Once Upon a Time, which is arguably one of the most complex of the new series of Doctor Who. It must have been a very complex script. And when we talked to, I think it was Pete who told us, was it Pete? Okay, one of our many superstar celebrities we've had on the podcast, But what they all said, it was that you, in your head, knew exactly where that script was about, where it was going, what they'd done, what had yet to do, what the story was, and you were advising all the actors and telling them what was going on. Is that true? Did it happen that way?
Yes, I will say I'm a genius.
Yes.
We've got a question here, actually. Sorry to interrupt slightly. This is from Oliver, and it's his username is @Oliver on the web. He says, when directing something as serialised as Flux for a show as episodic as Doctor Who, did you have a chance to approach pre-production with the whole story in mind, or was it more of an episode-by-episode approach? That relates a bit to what Paul's just asked there.
In what way exactly?
Well, I guess so. It was a bit of both. We had a kind of arc that we knew from Chris and where things were kind of going. But, you know, scripts were kind of evolving during pre-production. And so it was kind of like, it's weird. It's a bit of both in terms of like, you have one eye on the overarching arc and the other eye is just focusing on the contained story in that episode. And then you just kind of go deeper and deeper, right? It's just about the scene. And then it's just about what's in front of the lens. And does that tell the story? And then kind of going back to Once Upon a Time, that I think what helped in terms of me kind of having my head around it is that I remember having a conversation with Chris kind of early on, and even in my interview, they were like, we've got this one bonkers script, which we think you might be good for. And I like, one of my favorite films is Cloud Atlas. And I love it. Like, I think it's a bit, you know, it's a flawed masterpiece, but I love it for its kind of crazy.
That's a film I never thought I'd like, but I watched it and I thought, wow, this is something.
Yeah.
Isn't it great? Like, it's just, and it's just a perfect adaptation as well. Like, it takes the book and does something different with the movie. And so, like, having, like, we talked about Cloud Atlas and having these kind of multiple storylines and kind of interweaving them through one kind of episode. So I think having that understanding helped to have this kind of jigsaw piece episode in my head.
That episode gave us one of the many golden moments across Flux, but it was Jodie's police officer.
Yes.
Oh, that was classic, wasn't it? You could tell she was enjoying it.
She was great. She was. God, she nailed that speech as well. Like that, like she
just pulled that character out, didn't she? She just
it was really good.
Did it?
I think she really enjoyed being in a police outfit. And we were all like, God, this needs to be a spin-off.
That would be something, wouldn't it? Yeah, Jodie and Mandip doing two coppers. They could just do like 5-minute shorts. In them two, just knocking it out in a police car, just his banter backwards and forwards with crazy stories.
They're so good together. They're so good together, aren't they? Their friendship is genuine. Sorry, Paul, I think you might have had a question there, but I just wanted to ask quickly, tell us about Mandip. We hear so many lovely stories about her. You must have one as well.
Yeah, she's great. She's just so much fun to work with, and you know, just it's both of them. It's their laugh, right? Like and. They both have an ability to just have the most fun, but then take it seriously and get on set. And like they, you know, you're lining up for a shot. The clapboard's in. You're about to call action, and they're like laughing away. And as soon as you call action, it's like serious.
Oh, it's such fun.
That's brilliant. Yeah,
that's awesome. So we got we got a question from the Twitterverse. And this is from Aidan at AidenCG01, who asks, which episode was your favourite to direct? Now, there's a question.
I'd say 5. I think because of
Survivors
the
Survivors
of the Flux. I think because of that Indiana Jones style strand.
We've got another question about that in a bit, haven't we?
That must have been so much fun,
Like, honestly, it was so good because we could just have total fun with it, and the three of them together were just amazing. I think that's another like spin-off that we should do.
We said that before, haven't we?
But it was you know, we also, like, from a technical point of view, right? We used these vintage lenses, which kind of gave it this kind of old kind of vibe to it, and you can see the lens flares are like kind of very kind of specific with those lenses. Like, they're very kind of like stretched across the screen, and you get these weird kind of funny artifacts. And I think just having that, like, it made us kind of film it in a slightly different way, and I just loved it.
Tell us a bit quickly about the Hermit.
Oh yeah. How much fun was that? That was so good. Like, we were stood up on the side of this kind of hill, and he just was Cammy. I'll have to check. Like, you have to check his name. If I got his name wrong, you'd have to cut that out. We did the rehearsal, and like the crew And everybody, like, I remember John just had this big smile on his face. Mandip was giggling away, and everybody was laughing. And so you just knew you had kind of comedy gold.
Some gold there, yeah.
And like, this is like, Mandip's got like great comedy chops as well. Like, there's this moment where she kind of dips out from behind John, and it's just like the way she did it, and the timing of it was just so good. It was so good. But you know, like, on that day's filming, like, you wouldn't think it looking at it. We had rain, we had hailstone, we had gale force wind, and we just had to
Welsh day.
Yeah, exactly. And we just had to wait till the sun came out, and then we'd shoot a little bit, and then there's a great video somebody shot of me and Pete literally hunkering from the hailstone. So it's crazy. Like, it's kind of insane that we managed to get it done in that day, because we just had to wait around for all weather.
At all. Yeah.
Cami Darwin.
That's it. Cami.
Yes. Yeah. So, what was your single favourite moment on set and that you put on screen as?
Ooh. There's a question.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the Bell Cybermen fight.
Yeah, on the spaceship.
Partly also on the spaceship, in Once Upon a Time. Partly also because, like, in the script was Cybermen blast open the door, Bell shoots them, and they all dead, right? And so that's all it was. It was like 3 lines.
That's 3 lines.
I remember saying to Chris, I was like, I'd love to kind of go to town with this. And he was like, cool, do it.
Really? Yeah, brilliant.
Me and the DP, Phil, we just walked the set and we figured it out. We were like, well, there's this kind of ramp bit here. It'd be cool to have Bell roll over it.
She rolls on it,
shoots the last Cyberman in the chin and takes him out. And then I had that image at the end where she stands up and then one of the Cybermen just slumps over. Which is a reference to The Matrix, which after they... You know, when the scene where it's like, we need guns, lots of guns, and then they storm reception, and there's the big shootout, and at the very end, they get into the lift.
When the thing falls off.
Yes, the
of course,
kind of
yes.
And that's also like in True Lies. Do you remember in True Lies, the toilet fight?
Yes,
yes. The thing falls off, and then the old guy
falls off, doesn't it? Yeah.
That's it, and the old guy shuffles out the toilet with his trousers around his, it's such a kind of used gag, but it works brilliantly.
Good.
They do say the old ones are the best ones. Do you know what I'm just thinking? Listen to you say this sort of stuff, as it's like that is that almost like the Western in your bedroom, but on a bigger scale? Is it kind of the realization of that?
Yeah,
and then you've got Spielberg.
Because I just love I love doing action. And I like, so I really love working with actors. And I think, like, working on Doctor Who, so my current showrunner is Douglas McKinnon, who's also done Doctor Who. And he said, I think Peter Capaldi said to him that to be a good Doctor Who director, you need to be able to work with actors and be an actor's director, as well as being a technical craft director. And like,
well, I was gonna.
I love blowing stuff up. And I love all the guns, and I love all the kind of action. But I also love, like, some of my favorite scenes are also in Survivors of the Flux with Tecteun and the Doctor, right? Barbara Flynn and
electric. That's
Jodie.
Those scenes, honestly, mate, I was spellbound with those. Really,
it was. I mean, it was. We were all on set, like with the two of them, and it was like two powerhouses, right, going head to head. And I enjoyed that as much because it's just great performances.
It is, but I think there's also the storytelling through the camera as well, And when I was watching those episodes just now, and because I was looking for these little directorial flourishes, when you're watching as a viewer, you don't necessarily watch for those, right? You just kind of go along with the story, aren't you? And the whole thing unfolds visually, audibly, all of that stuff. So now I was looking at it, and I thought, you know what? There's a lot of close-ups on the eyes, on the faces. You go from the wide and to really zeroing in. I shouldn't do that because that's too scary with my face. But do you know what I mean? You pick up the eyes.
Stop it!
It's brilliant. And there's a lot of the. Is it? Are you using a bit of handheld as well in there?
So we kind of wanted this kind of energy of essentially, because they're moving between dimensions, and so this whole thing is kind of kind of creaking and falling apart and very unstable, and and so kind of having that with running throughout the whole of this drama between, essentially, it's a mother-daughter relationship. Yes. It's a very messed up mother-daughter relationship. But that was at its core what I said to the actors. I was like, it's mum and daughter arguing. And in this case, it's about very massive, epic, important things, but still at its heart is that relationship.
Well, it's really interesting what you said there about Peter Capaldi, and I was going to say, you really had the chance on the show to do action and, more dramatic moments and things like that. And again, we've talked about this, Paul, haven't we? But programs like this and blowing up stuff is great, but if you don't care about the characters, it doesn't really matter. And I was going to mention the hologram scene from Survivors, which is so brilliantly played between everyone, and is, do you remember it, Paul? It was, really kind of a touching moment. And
on the ship, on the boat,
on the ship. How did you do that one? Was Jodie there at the time, or was she green screened in?
No, Jodie was there, and and it was that was a really lovely set as well. I kind of enjoyed shooting on that. Partly because the carpet was so plush, so we were all just always lying down on it.
You were actually tilting the camera as well. You were getting the roll of the ship.
So we'd get the roll of the ship, and then I think it's quite subtle, but you'd notice the kind of the curtains moving as well. So we had there's a poor kind of props person just back and forth, just pushing a long pole.
Curtain wrangler.
And I think, like some of the lights move at the start. But, it's having that kind of small, intimate set, it just afforded that kind of emotion in the scene. And it was, they're so good, the both of them. And I loved Mandip's performances. And Jodie's as well. But I just love the way when John comes back in, and John is great in that scene as well. When he sits down next to her, and it's just the way he kind of like nudges her.
What does he say? You've been.
We'll see her again.
We'll see it again.
Is it we'll see her again? Like
he doesn't. You've been caning the that hologram or something, isn't it? He says, So we'll move on to your recent work in a minute, but just quickly. No spoilers, but what do you know about the plans for the finale of Jodie's?
100%. I honestly do not know. I do not know. All I know is that they were filming it whilst we were in post production. Right. Yeah, that's all I know.
Do you try and have a little sneak in or anything?
No, accidentally walk into the set,
So everybody ordered McDonald's. Oh my goodness! I shouldn't have seen that. Like walking in on your parents, or maybe not.
Unfortunately not. No.
Well, I don't know where it's going. So we've got a few more Who questions from Twitter users in a minute if we get time. But tell us how Anansi Boys came about for you.
So that came about. I was in post production on Who, and like I think Nikki Wilson, who's the co-exec on the show and has been on the show for several years. I think Douglas McKinnon called up about me and just got a reference, and Nikki gave a very lovely, glowing reference. And then it was just an interview, so it came kind of via agents.
Brilliant.
And it's, when you get the email and it says Neil Gaiman's and Anansi Boys, you're like, yes, please, I want this. But that was quite an intense, was it 2 interviews, I think? So the first interview, again, everything by Zoom. And it was with all the producers at first and execs, like the UK execs. But then the second interview was at, I think it was at 8:00 at night, because it was Amazon US and Neil Gaiman. Yeah. And so Neil was in New Zealand at the time, and then there's LA time as well, and then Douglas as well. And oh god, so nervous. And and then Douglas said, look, because that was after this first interview, and he was like, look, we all want you to have this. So just be. Essentially, I think it was be normal.
Yeah, just be yourself.
Just be yourself and be passionate. And so I did a kind of 10-15 minute pitch on why I love the book, and I'd read the book, and just kind of why I connected to it, and it's something quite special to like be pitching it, and you can see Neil's face, and he's kind of smiling, and you're kind of going, okay, this is
going the right way.
Yeah.
So did you direct the whole series, or did you know how many episodes?
So I've done 2 episodes.
Right.
Yeah. So there's 3 directors.
Okay.
Is it strange? Sorry, Geoff, go on.
No, I was just going to say, what did you think of Scotland? My mum was in England. I know you weren't there, but yeah, your question was probably more insightful.
I loved it though.
Edinburgh's lovely, isn't it?
Edinburgh's lovely.
Yeah. Did you do a ghost walk while you were there?
No, I didn't actually. I wish I'd done actually. Yeah. But yeah, we were in I was in Leith. Great place.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask actually, because it just kind of probably should have asked it a little while ago. But when you're working on a series like this, where there are multiple directors and each one is contributing to different chapters of the story, I assume that has its own kind of challenges. Again, with collaboration, you guys have got to make sure you're all kind of speaking the same language visually.
Yeah. It tends not to be quite challenging. I think so in TV, I guess, because it's. You've got the kind of showrunner model now, they are the kind of main kind of creative force, essentially, and they'll be making a lot of the choices. I mean, as a director, you can kind of bring a lot to the table as well, but it is kind of filtered through them, and so in terms of that collaboration, it's fairly, as long as like the other directors are fun and easy to work with, which my experience has been. Like it was great working with Jamie, right? Who did the other 3 episodes of Flux, and also because he'd done last year's as well, the year before, and he's just a lovely guy, and so we were always on the same page, and you kind of pass each other essentially in the studio, and so it's what's great also about Doctor Who is that you are told to bring your own style to it. And your own vision.
I was going to say you can tell which episodes belong to which of you guys. There's an overall kind of style, but then there's individual bits as well that stand out and differentiate you guys, which I think is great.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's great. I think it's just great because it doesn't detract from the show as a whole, but I think it kind of gives each one a little flavour.
Yeah, it does. It kind of gives an energy to it, doesn't it? Or keeps the energy vibrant, keeps it buzzing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I've got a question, which is for any filmmakers that are listening. So, what would your top tips be for filmmakers to prep for their shoots and help them run more smoothly? Things that they should be looking out for and on shoot days. What are your top tips?
That's a good question, actually. I think you can never plan enough. I think doing a lot of prep, and whether that is some people like storyboarding and some people like just doing floor plans. But I think just doing lots of prep and just being really prepared, so then when you walk onto set, you can be prepared to throw that all away, right? So it's. But having done a huge amount of prep, it kind of goes into you, right? And you get to know the material inside out, so that when you're rehearsing with an actor who goes, well, actually, I think I want to do it this way, and all that intricate storyboard and shot listing you've done has gone out the window. You're kind of confident enough to kind of go, cool, okay, let's try it, because all that prep helps you to work out essentially one way of telling the story and shooting that scene, and helps you get to the heart of why that scene is important. Which I guess, in short films, every scene pretty much is important because they tend to be so short and there's only maybe a handful of scenes.
It's like condensed, isn't it? Every shot has to count.
Absolutely.
If it doesn't contribute, it shouldn't be there, really.
It should be. And in fact, kind of leading on from that, I think, like every shot counts. I like doing that prep and that planning helps you to manage your time. And especially on a short film when you may only be shooting for 1, 2 days, maybe 3 or 4. But that time goes very quickly. And it's kind of terrifying.
Know what you need, haven't you? Yeah.
But, honestly, it never changes.
I used to feel, well, I still do feel this, but 75% plan, 25% winging it on the day for the exact reasons that you just said. On one of my early short films, I'd storyboarded this 3-way shootout between some cops and baddies.
You did a western as well.
It was a modern western, okay. I guess. And I had it all planned, and I knew where we were going to shoot it. And we got there on the day, and there was a massive pile of rubble right in the middle of where we were going to shoot. Wasn't there the week before. And I got there, and I thought, damn it, what do I do? And so really quickly, the scene had to be shifted and adapted, and make it work around this, and it worked, but it. Kind of taught me, like you said, if an actor says, actually, I want to try it like this, or, something's not working on the day. And, so, I think that's really important to plan, but
to be adaptable.
Flex. Yeah.
And you kind of want to be, I think, it's with that kind of planning and adaptability, you need to be kind of problem solving as the day goes along, and thinking kind of 2 or 3 shots ahead and going, okay, well, I've got this angle and I've got this angle. And if you were planning on 3 more and you're going to only have time for 1, and again, this is where the editing experience comes into, comes to hand, because you need to then go, well, which one out of those 3, or how do I condense those 3 into 1 shot to make that story work and make the scene work? And you're constantly evaluating and changing and moving about.
So you jump in
and then
so
you go
many
home
things.
at the end of the day, and
absolutely,
it's exhausting, isn't it, in a way? But a good.
I was going to say you wouldn't do it unless it was fun, would you? Unless you got
no, completely.
Exactly,
Actually, just on that, I mean, what does it kind of feel like then to see your creation on screen, and for people to engage with it, and for you to sort of know, it's almost like you're on the other side of that screen now at Jurassic Park. The audience is now between you, on the other side of what you made. That must be something. It is something, and that first episode I went out once upon a time, and seeing my name up there is an amazing experience. But I still think I'm a bit close to it. Like I still see the process. Right.
I see the days we spent shooting it. I see the shots that we missed, or the days spent at the edit. So I think I need a couple of years to then go back and be able to watch it as a kind of audience member.
But even then, would you do what I do when I go and watch a film? One half of my brain is enjoying it for what it is, and the other half is going, that's a good shot.
Yes.
Is that CGI? Just there's like two parts of me, viewing it. Yeah,
absolutely. I'm always doing that.
So we've got a question here from Annie, who's at Annie TQED, and she says, what kind of atmosphere were you going for in that final scene in Vanquishers where the Doctor and Yaz are looking at each other? Was it meant to be emotionally charged, and was it linked to the Thasmin storyline?
Yeah, so that's a good question, because that it is really interesting. At one point we did a take, and I could see Jodie welling up, and it was interesting because both of them were welling up, because I think partly also it was coming to the end. They knew they had only a few months left of filming, including the specials that came afterwards. But it was all there. So I thought, right, okay, let's push this. I'm gonna let's just kind of go for it. I remember Jodie saying oh, okay, so we're going there, and that's all she needed to say. And we did it, and generally I had tears in my eyes as well whilst watching it, because it's just an amazing performance. And I loved the moment where she kind of tries to still, after Yaz has gone up to the stairs. Yeah, it's that bit there, isn't it, where she smiles, but the Doctor smiles back, and there's still a tear going down her cheek. And I just kind of, that moment there it was just pretty powerful. So, it definitely was something that we really pushed for in terms of the emotional side. Now, with the Thasmin thing, it's nothing that we discussed. I think we all kind of felt it was going somewhere. Chris didn't say anything. Nobody said anything of where the story was going. But it was like we knew, I think, that Chris wanted to do something, because I think that was right. And I I think it's right that it's a same-sex relationship, and why can't that happen, right? And so it was just there. I think it was just there, right? And I think we all want you to just see, like, look, where can we kind of push it? And I really enjoyed doing that scene. It was just great.
It was crackling, wasn't it? Honestly, I think my daughter watched it with me, and the both of us, for the first time we watched it, were just, again, spellbound, and to be sort of taken from the, because so you got a lot going on in that final 10 minutes of that final episode. You got all them Dalek spaceships, all that SFX, all that, and that is cinematic, right? So that's all sort of with the was it DNEG or whatever it was,
right?
Absolutely. But still,
loads of stuff
you've got to
is
continue
cool.
that into the personal stuff. So then you got the all the closure with the Grand Serpent, with the tunnels and Jericho's last stand and all of this stuff, and then you bring it right down to that moment in time, right, between those two people, right there, right then, and it's quick, and we're in, and it's almost like, it's the equivalent I can think of is when you're watching a really, really good theatre production, and you're laughing, you're joking, you're just going along with a thrill ride, and and everyone's interacting, it's great, and everyone's cheering and clapping, and then suddenly the lights come down, the spot comes on, and it's just two actors on the stage. Everything, you can hear a pin drop. It's the equivalent of that, and I've seen it I don't know how many times now, but it's still powerful stuff,
Thank you. Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah,
that's right. I don't give credit unless it's due, mate. I'll tell you now.
Thank you. But I think for me, like from a directing point of view, like how I think it worked was having that moment where the Doctor turns away from Yaz to start that conversation, and I think having that tension where her back is turned to Yaz is, I think because it draws you in as an audience as well. It's just like, and then she turns in, and that's when she has that moment, that kind of very truthful moment. And it is because, like, she's pretty harsh to Yaz throughout the series.
Yeah, there's a few moments where she, has a bit of a, there's various things like that across the series, like in was it Revolution of the Daleks, when the Doctor's been in space jail, and she gets back in, in the TARDIS, and she's all sort of, triumphant and happy to see everyone, and Yaz gets really angry and pushes her, and the Thasmin storyline, I think, has, been hinted at across the whole era, and there's little moments, aren't there, Paul? We always see these little bits and things, and like you said, as the Doctor was quite harsh towards Yaz a few times across Flux,
and so it felt genuine when she apologized and said, I'm sorry that I kept you out, and
as the audience, we know the things, don't we? Or a lot of it, and you're sort of willing them, Yaz to find out and her to tell her at that point. Yeah, great.
And I loved that John breaks it.
It does.
Because that just felt so real as well, and how he kind of like popped in, and that they both joke it off, and I think it's just like they both know that it's not been resolved at that moment there, but it is. They've made a step forwards in their relationship, and then the Doctor as well, right? And great. They both did a good job.
Yeah. So we've got a question here from Dana K, who's at Dana K. Was it Jodie's voice that was used as the angels whispering to the Doctor at the start of Survivors of the Flux?
Good question. That will have to be a question for Chris, I think, because one of the downsides of being a director of television is that the kind of final post process happens once you've kind of left the project. I think it might be. Because I rewatched it and I was thinking, like, is it? So I can't be for sure. So you'd have to ask Chris. Maybe I should text him.
That gives us a mission. Let's find out. Yeah,
or we can invite him onto the podcast.
We'd love to chat to Chris. Yeah. So we've got another question here. We sort of touched on this earlier, actually, but if there was, this is from at Miss Head Desk, if there was an Indiana Yaz series set during the years she and her companions are stuck on Earth, would you direct it?
Yes, 100%,
Good.
Like, honestly, it was so much fun, and also like Yaz's costumes in that strand.
Yeah,
were
people
amazing.
Love them, don't
amazing.
they?
Yeah.
And also John's beard as well.
Yes.
As well. Yeah.
He looked great in a beard, didn't he? He was
it really suited him. Yeah.
It was good.
We spoke to Kevin McNally a while ago, like we said, and we asked him similar if there was going to be a sort of big Finish series or something set with Jericho and Dan and Yaz, and he was very cryptic, wasn't he? Paul? And he said you'll have to keep your ears open for news, and we were like, but he wouldn't say any more, would he?
We can have more Jericho in our lives.
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, do you know when you see
he
things,
loved playing it? Didn't
he did. Yeah. Sorry, so I was just going to ask you. You know when you're filming a script, and suddenly some part of it which you'd never suspected, when the actors come together and everything's kind of working, seems to generate a life of its own. Did you find that? Does it surprise you when it happens?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. It's one of the joys of being a director is rehearsing and blocking a scene and finding that kind of chemistry and that magic and seeing how it kind of builds throughout how you shoot it. And what, like, one of the things that I absolutely love is when you go and give a note to an actor and it just changes their performance in a completely different way, and you're just like, wow, this and you feel privileged because you're one of the first people to watch.
Yeah, to see that moment
with these characters.
Yeah, that's true.
And it never ceases to amaze me. And I love it.
I can tell your passion's coming through when the big smile on your face. Honestly,
I feel like when we finish chatting, I'm going to go and watch Once Upon a Time again, and go. I haven't watched it all for probably a couple of weeks now.
I watched it. I watched that one last night, and I tried watching Survivors of the Flux. I did fall asleep, but that was because it was like 2:00 in the morning. That's the only reason.
It's not because he was bored. He's always watching stuff at like 2 or 3 in the morning.
I'm getting too old for this now. I should be in bed at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Can I just ask, actually, as you... sorry, Geoff, did you have something?
Well, I was just going to say, I know we've probably taken up too much.
Yeah, honestly, I'm good to. I'm enjoying chatting this.
Oh, good. Okay, brilliant. All right, great. Go for it, Paul.
I was just going to ask, because you were talking earlier about your love of sci-fi. Have you always been a sci-fi fan? And if so, what's your favourite? What are your favourite stories in the genre?
Yes, no, absolutely. Like, I just bought this book, like The History of Science Fiction by James Cameron, and it's like,
look at Geoff now. He's picked up.
Do you know? Do you know there's a series that accompanies it?
Yes, it's an AMC thing. I've been trying to find it, but I think it was just.
So I looked on eBay, and you can buy the Blu-ray, but I couldn't find what region it was. So, because I was desperate to see it.
Yeah, and, so the
it's
book
is a really good book, isn't it?
Yeah, so the book is, it's the kind of all the interviews. Oh, it's so good. I've got to tell you a James Cameron story as well. Remind me in a second.
Yes, please.
Okay. So science fiction, yes. I like, growing up on Back to the Future, Star Wars, obviously.
Yeah.
So I think it has always, I've always loved it, and I think I've always been fascinated by just. Stories in far-flung places or in the future, just the concept of human beings in it could be the same place but like thousands of years in the future. It just has always kind of fascinated me, and also the past as well. I really love kind of historical kind of period films as well. So I think I have just always had this love of science fiction. And what was the question was what film?
Yeah, or what's your favourite sci-fi kind of gems?
I mean, Terminator 2 is up there. Abyss, a lot of James Cameron, he's just great.
Yes, you are talking.
Geoff is just glowing now. I can see.
Well, actually, it's my torch because it's gone dark in the corner.
So you've gone all sepia tinted. No, you've gone all Blair Witch Project. What is that all about?
Yes.
There's no light in here.
So
So you're a big Cameron fan, yeah?
I am. So yes, let me tell my Cameron story.
Go on,
on Nancy Boys, we're shooting. We've been shooting on the the LED volume that they use for kind of Mandalorian.
Yes.
So that kind of technology.
Stuff,
so for those who don't know, it's essentially a giant TV screen, like a curved 60-foot TV screen, and the difference between this and any kind of rear projection is that the camera is tracked in 3D space, and what you have on the screen is essentially it's Unity game engine. It's a very photorealistic 3D world. So when you move the camera, the background kind of moves in conjunction with the camera, so you get parallax. So on this show, we've got it's essentially about twin brothers, right? And so we have one actor, Malachi Kirby, playing both brothers. And so one of the tools that we used is this camera crane called a techno dolly, which is it's essentially it's an arm on a track, and you do a move, and it programs that move, so then you can then repeat the move over and over again. And we were using a techno dolly in the LED volume, and I was like, oh, we should check if this is the first time this has been done. And it turns out, because there are LED volume people, the head guy used to work for Weta, and so he knows a lot of people who are working on Avatar.
Peter Jackson's coming.
And so he was like, and so he was like, well, let's go and check who else has done it. And it turns out Cameron beat us by 2 weeks of using a techno dolly in an LED volume. And also the annoying thing is that scene that we filmed was originally scheduled a month before, but we had to change it because
you would have been first.
I would have beaten James Cameron.
Amazing.
So, but you know what? I will take second to James.
That's not.
If you're going to come second to somebody, James Cameron. You can't get much better than that, can you?
I think they used the techno crane a lot on Moon Knight because they had Oscar Isaac playing himself on screen.
I haven't seen it. I need to watch that.
Yeah, it was good. So his real life, I'm not sure if he was twin brother, because then you could tell they're brothers, but they're not identical. But of course, he could be non-identical twin. But he played, the other version, and then it was all face replacement and stuff like that. But I remember watching behind the scenes on the Hollow Man. Do you remember that? Paul Verhoeven, Kevin Bacon, Invisible Man killer thing. And they showed the techno crane there, so they shoot the plate shot of the hallway. Yeah. Then the shot with him in his green screen suit or whatever it was, and then the shot with the rain, and then the arm moves the same way each time, and it's all comped together to put it all together. It's quite an amazing piece of kit, really, in how it works. Yeah. Cool. Back on the Cameron thing, he had a book out recently called Tech Noir, which is all of his drawings from his. I mean, he's kept so much stuff, but from his early childhood, all of his designs for Terminator, Aliens, Avatar, even the Spider-Man film he never did. All of his stuff, and it's absolutely fascinating.
Right.
Seeing
Amazon, here we go.
Reading his commentary, so I definitely recommend that, because he's a very visual filmmaker as well. With his planning and stuff, creature design work.
Have you read his Alien script?
I've got that.
The thing that gets me with that is actually how visual it is. He describes a floating chip in space. It's so you instantly see those things, and probably that's partly because I've seen the film so many times. It just instantly calls it. But you can read it in the words, can't you? You can sort of get a sense of somebody writing something visually, knowing how they're going to shoot this thing.
Yes. Yeah.
And you mentioned Abyss earlier, which is one of the great missing Blu-rays of all time, isn't it? Yeah. Along with True Lies.
Because I used to have it on DVD, and they had an amazing making of. I just want it on Blu-ray now, or just And True Lies. Is a great film.
It is. Yeah, it was on TV a couple of months ago, and the first time I'd seen it in years, and it was so good. But apparently there are 4K remasters of both films, but I reckon they'll wait until Avatar 2 comes out to
yes.
And there's a bit of a Cameron buzz in the air again.
Yeah.
You can milk it.
Very excited for that, for the sequel.
Yes. Yeah.
Apparently it's 3.5 hours long.
Oh my god!
Is it? Oh well,
yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
We also had in our cast CCH Pounder, who was also in Avatar as well. And,
oh yeah, she played Moat, didn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I refrained to go too geeky with her.
Well, you're a stronger man than I would have been.
You would have cornered her in one room. Yeah. She would never have got away from you. She'd be like looking at a watch saying, I got it.
Has anyone seen her? Yeah. So you've obviously been really busy shooting, but have you got to the cinema much this year? What's been your favourite, or TV even?
Oh, we just watched Top Gun in IMAX.
Oh,
yeah.
Just like, it was that second time as well, and what a movie! Like, so good. Like, really enjoyed that. I'm so glad that they waited to release that in theaters.
And also it's the rare occasion where a massive gap between sequels has actually worked in the film's favour, I think. Like narratively. You know. Have you seen Oblivion that Joseph Kosinski did with Cruise as well?
But I saw it when it first came out, and I didn't really enjoy it, but I think it's on Netflix or something, because I was like, I want to rewatch it.
Actually, it's one of my favourites.
I do love the design of it. Yeah,
great design, and
maybe I really enjoyed it. I do want to watch it again.
Possibly, yeah. I just watched Summer Spiderhead that he did, which is on Netflix. With Chris Hemsworth,
and it's also got Miles Teller, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I must admit, I only got halfway on it, and a bit like you, Paul, it was late, and I was like, I'm not quite sure I'm feeling this. So, but it was an interesting idea. You know, they pump drugs into people that alter their moods and stuff, and then it inevitably starts going wrong. But I think I might have to go back and try and finish it, because he's got a great style as well. Top Gun was just incredible, and I'm a bit of a film snob, and IMAX is the only way to see stuff.
Yes,
you know.
Yeah.
I went to see Dune in IMAX. If that helps, if that helps me join this club.
You did, didn't you? Yeah,
I had to.
You can join the IMAX club.
Yeah. It's so good. It's so good. We just recently finished watching The Offer on. We did the free week trial on Paramount.
Oh yeah.
And this is the show about the making of The Godfather, and it's really good. Like we weren't sure at first, but Matthew Good as Robert Evans, the head of Paramount, amazing. And also, I didn't realize it was so hard to get it made. Like, with mobsters after them and trying to shut the film down. Really? It's crazy. Yeah, like it's just insane.
Yeah. Is that on Paramount Plus?
They thought it was going to be. It's on Paramount Plus. Yeah. So get it. Yeah, get the 7-day free trial.
I've got it. I've been binging Star Trek the last couple of weeks.
I was going to say, as a Trek fan, there's quite a bit on there for you.
Catch up with Discovery and Strange New Worlds and all that stuff that we haven't been able to for whenever. But it's kind of weird now how all these streaming platforms have been kind of made by the studios, isn't it? You know, we've got Disney, we've got Paramount. Yeah. You know, we're going to end up back with a situation where we've just got cable TV again, but it's over the internet and less reliable.
Exactly.
It's weird, really.
Yeah. Do you know, I sat down to watch Terminal List the other day, the Chris Pratt
thriller.
And sorry, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, any good?
Yes, it's very dark visually when if you watch it, like the grade, like they're in outside in the daylight, and you're like, it's still bright. There's no colour in it. It's really odd. He's good in it because he's playing a bit of a different. He's less kind of wisecracky and stuff. And it started out, I was like, this is alright. It's a good bit of action. But then the mystery starts to come into play, and actually I was like, I'm quite interested in this. And it sort of wasn't quite what I was expecting.
Because I saw the poster today, I was like, he's clearly trying to do somebody serious and move away from that Chris Pratt image that he's got.
That's exactly it. But yeah, it was good. But yeah, the first episode, it paused 3 times to catch up on the streaming, and I was like, yes, physical media is still the best, So.
You can't beat it. So what's next for you then, Az? What are obviously Anansi Boys, but then
Anansi Boys is still in post at the moment. So at the moment I'm in post till kind of after summer, and so I don't know what I'm doing yet. So as director, you'll get scripts kind of, maybe a couple of months before they get going. So I'll be getting some scripts in soon, I guess.
Yeah.
Great. So,
It's brilliant. No,
you must feel, you must feel like you're in a different place career-wise now to what you were, a couple of years ago, and
100%.
You can still, I guess, never take anything for granted or kind of rest on your laurels, but it must be a bit more kind of reassuring, to have kind of moved up and be people are going to be wanting you.
It's a strange feeling, because I don't feel like I've of course I've kind of developed and grown, but I also feel like the same person as I was a few years ago, and now suddenly it's that everybody else's attention has changed and now kind of wants to work with me, and it's after so many years of having no's and doors closed in your faces, it's an odd feeling. Yeah. So it's important. I think it's kind of like, I think sometimes then I'm always like, what jobs do you say yes to? I want to get this right. I want to kind of, but I think at the end of the day, you just have to kind of go with A, your gut, and B, is it a good story, and is it going to be fun to work on? Like, because Doctor Who, that's what it taught me was, it was a lot of fun to work on, and I really, really enjoyed that. And I just want to make sure that, because it's hard enough what we do anyway. Look, we're not saving lives or anything, but it's stressful and it's crazy and there's a lot of pressure. So if you can have fun whilst doing it, then all the better.
That's brilliant.
I think it's a really inspiring story as the sort of early uncertainties, but also the dedication and the sense of risk and gambling with other people's money and stuff like that. Oh my goodness!
Did you have the mob come after you?
Honestly, you try not to think about it because, it's so weird. Even when you get there's more money on the budget, it's still weirdly it's never enough. There's never enough time.
It vanishes quickly. Doesn't
it really does. It really does.
I hope other people, other filmmakers and Who fans will find your story and your tales.
The showrunners and directors and writers of the future are listening to our podcast right now, Geoff.
I just say, keep going. Perseverance is key, and even if at times it doesn't feel like it's going to happen, I think if it's just you just got to keep going and surround yourself with people who believe in you as well, because there are times when you're going to feel like you feel like you're not going to be up for this, and you need those people around you to keep pushing you on.
Brilliant. No, that's good advice. Absolutely. We have one final question, the most important question of all. We ask of all. It's become a bit of a tradition now, hasn't it? But it has, Sophie the Otter from Twitterverse, who is at Sophie the Otter. Anyone who's listened to our podcast and recent episodes will know exactly what we're going to ask. But as if you, my friend, were a biscuit, what biscuit would you be and why?
The first one is going to sound so boring.
It always does.
Because I enjoy them so much, and it's just plain old rich teas.
Oh, I've been waiting for someone to say that. I love rich teas. I like all biscuits. Rich tea,
You know why?
What's good about rich tea? Come on, tell.
Because they're dependable. They do what they set out to do. It's just a rich tea. It doesn't try and be anything else.
That's good.
And
have you just made a biscuit directorial metaphor there?
I think it's got to be. I also, much to my wife's annoyance, I also don't dunk them in tea. I eat them dry, and she thinks I'm a serial killer for that. But you've got to have them in its original form, right?
You do. Yeah, this is true. On that note, shall we close that there? Rich tea, non-tea dunking rich teas. Thank you so much for joining our podcast. It's been an absolute delight and a pleasure listening to your stories, and I wish you all the very best, and I can't wait to see your name at the front of the next big blockbuster. I'm going to be there.
Thank you so much. I've had so much fun. It's been really great.
Brilliant, thank you. It's been really good. Look, can't wait to see Anansi boys, and I'm going to go and watch Flux again now.
Yeah, I'm excited for it again. I've only just finished watching it.
Yeah.
Listeners, thank you everybody for listening to our chat with Azhur Saleem. Hope you have a great time wherever you are, and we'll see you on the next Who Corner to Corner podcast. Stay tuned.
Thanks everyone.
We really need to think of a proper outro for these things, don't we?
I'll just play the music now.
The music will come over.
I'll put the music on. Yeah.